Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar in our continuing series here at Project E3. This morning, we're excited to have Elizabeth Newcomb she's a manager, as you saw on the slides, but a manager with the general agency, the General VR Agency in North Carolina. And this morning, Elizabeth is going to talk about an initiative that she started at her office, in a variety of offices that she manages in the eastern area of North Carolina, which she is calling the intentional vision of job development. We're pretty excited to hear how that has been going. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. If you have a question, you can please put it in the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen. Those of you that have been with us in the past know where that is. If you're new, you should see it either on the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen. Please put your questions there. Elizabeth will be answering questions when she's done with her presentation. If by chance you happen to put them in the chat box, we'll figure that out. The other part, for those of you that may have an interest in CRC credit for this particular webinar, Jen from the SVRI office will come on at the end and explain to you how that will happen. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Here we go. Whoops. Hang on. Beth, you need to take yourself off mute. Oops.
There, that better?
There we go. I need to get your PowerPoint up. Oh, what the heck here? Sorry, having a little bit of...
That's all right. While he's getting the PowerPoint up, I'll go ahead and I'll just say that, yes, my name is Elizabeth Newcomb, and I'm the unit manager for the Rocky Mount Vocational Rehabilitation Office in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina. We serve a 4-county catchment area in the state of North Carolina, and we were selected to participate in the E3 program several years ago, that is an awesome opportunity for us in regards to empowering and employing and educating those in our area. And so we've been engaging, or our counselors have engaged in several different opportunities through that to try and improve our performance and our services to those individuals that are in need. I'll just give you a little bit of background on the area that we serve. Again, I mentioned it's a 4-county area in eastern North Carolina. It covers Edgecombe, Halifax, Nash, and Northampton counties. That population is around 225,000 people in an area approximately the size of Rhode Island and Delaware combined, but only about 10% of the population of that. And so we serve a vast area that's mainly rural. We do have approximately 10% of our population that are by Social Security statistics on Social Security or supplemental security income. So we do have a large portion of individuals that we identify as being disabled. Obviously, there are many individuals with disabilities who are not in that statistic. So we were chosen to participate in the E3 program because of continued high unemployment rates in our areas. These were for a lot of reasons. We, over the last several, I'll call it the last decade or two, I'll call it 2 decades, this area has experienced a lot of economic distress and loss in job opportunities. In the late 80s, early 90s, because of NAFTA, we lost a major part of manufacturing, textiles, processing, and different things like that. That shuttered a lot of factories, industries, and things in our area. Unfortunately, over the last 20 plus years, we have had 5 hurricanes that have devastated our area, not unlike a lot of natural disasters that you have faced across the nation. I'll just put a little tidbit in there. North Carolina is a beautiful place to come and visit, great tourism. But if Jim Cantori ever tells you that there is a hurricane with an F, don't come. North Carolina because Hurricane Fran, Floyd, and Florence were three of those hurricanes that hit us and created issues in our area. In fact, in Hurricane Floyd back in 1999, which again is about 20 years ago, we lost over 4,000 businesses and residences in our area because of the flooding that occurred. And we had a difficult time coming back from that. The Great Recession that happened back in 2008 and 2009, we lost an additional 8% of our employment in our area. And the economic leaders in the state of North Carolina identified that Eastern North Carolina has had a much more difficult time in recuperating from some of the losses that we've had over the years because of the different setbacks. But that's not to say that we don't have opportunities, and we have great leaders in our state and in our counties that are striving to increase our manufacturing again, also trying to move us into more of an area of finance and online type of e-marketing and different things like that. So we do have some positives coming to our area and things that are hoping to bring us up. And so E3 was a great opportunity for us here in Eastern North Carolina. As a manager of an E3 field office, there's two sites in North Carolina, one in the west and us in the east. And as a manager, I was given the opportunity to go to the E3 Leadership Academy that was held last fall, last September in New Orleans. And that was presented by UA Currents, as most of our E3 things are. And that just gave us a great opportunity to be educated and inspired and to help us to think about ways that we can promote education and empowerment and employment in our areas. And during those sessions, that's when they had a presenter by the name of Ashley Cross, a very dynamic and energetic speaker, someone who has been in the field. She is from Arkansas. She was a business engagement specialist for the state of Arkansas, and she has since gone out in her own consulting. But she's had a lot of success, and that's partly due to her personality and her vision that she has. And she was challenging us during a session for overcoming employment challenges to have us reevaluate why we do what we do. She basically broke it down into two parts, that primarily in vocational rehabilitation, we are filling a business need for our business and our employer market. And then we're also trying to assist our consumers in getting those jobs. And so, you know, we put our focus on those areas. But she brought out an interesting point that a lot of the traditional VR system, particularly over the last number of years, has focused on those two main points. But we've failed to see that third factor in a triangle being the vocational rehabilitation programs, the staff, the counselors, or the business relations reps that we have being the foundation for keeping that system flowing. And she said that, you know, she shared a statistic and things about the fact that when you poll or you interview and survey VR counselors or VR staff across the nation, a common complaint, and one of the ones that's really high up on the list, is the volume of cases, the high caseload numbers that we deal with in state-run VR agencies versus perhaps private rehabilitation programs. Across the state, that number is usually around 150 to 200 consumers per counselor. I know there's states that are probably much higher than that. There's probably some states that are a little lower. Particularly in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, we average around 100, maybe just a tick over that, 105 to 106 caseloads or cases on each caseload. And it's the same here. Our counselors get overwhelmed. They see a whole list of people coming in and out, and it's that same old adage of, you know, how do you eat an elephant? And her response to that was just one bite at a time. And so she recommended a more targeted approach. And while she was in there, she talked about, you know, having counselors focus on smaller groups of people. And even as she was speaking, you know, the light bulb kind of came on for me and said, you know, what about 2020? we're coming into this new year. I was a new manager at that point. I only have been the manager of this office since last July, but I've been in the agency for 25 years, 26 years actually. But as a new manager, what could I do to inspire my counselors, my staff, to have better performance, better outcomes, meaning that they had served more people and had success for those individuals in getting employment. And so the idea of 2020 in 2020 came about. And so if you'd advance the slide there, Terry, I'd appreciate it. So I came back from New Orleans kind of energized and saying, okay, I'm going to make a difference. And I created this little poster. It's a motivational poster for my staff. As you see, if you look over my left shoulder, there's a poster on my wall. There's a poster on every wall of every VR counselor and VR staff in our offices in our 4 counties to inspire and motivate us as vocational rehabilitation programs to help individuals find jobs, to get into work, to prepare them and train them for success. And there are no limits. So this was kind of an initiative that we kind of pulled together and then asked them to try and implement this. Not saying that this is rocket science, not saying that we reinvented the wheel, but we just wanted to take an initiative in the Rocky Mount VR catchment area to try and implement some changes in the way we were doing business. Advance the next slide, please, Terry. So what I did was I challenged my counselors and VR staff. Each caseload has a team with a counselor, a technician, and then they share business relations reps and evaluators. They kind of have little teams. And we asked each team to go and look at their caseloads, look at that 100+ people that they were generally working with to find out who in that group was ready for employment and get them to go. My counselors, they took it upon themselves to have different criteria depending upon the caseloads and the needs that they had. So even though I had requested that they select 20 individuals who were job ready, some of them were actively participating. Of course, I think you probably can understand there's times when our participants aren't the most active and engaging with us, but so they wanted to be active participants, ready for work. Then some of my counselors individually decided that they wanted individuals who had already completed an employment marketing skills class. And I'll explain a little bit about what that is in a few minutes. Some counselors chose consumers who had not yet completed employment marketing skills class, but saw that that was a gap and something that they needed. And then also the involvement with a community rehabilitation job coach. There were some counselors who said, the participants that already have a job coach, they already have someone to give them that leg up. We already cooperate and work with our job coaches. And so I'm going to select individuals who don't have that extra partner, and I'm going to give them extra attention or focus. Some counselors chose individuals who were also involved with a job coach and wanted to have still a more intentional outreach to those individuals and have that partnership added. So not everyone had a job coach. Of course, not everybody needs that type of service. All in all, 231 participants were selected by our counselors. Some of those rolled over as some individuals got jobs. The counselors rolled them off of that 2020 list, and so they added some new people in. Some did not, some just kept them on the list because they were continuing to do follow-up with them, hadn't gotten them to the point of successful outcome. And so I just mentioned there on the slide that that 231 came out of a catchment of approximately 1,100 consumers, a little tick above that, but just to give you some round numbers for that particular time. So these participants were selected to have intentional special job development and follow-up, so that through that concentration of effort, we were hoping that we would see more placement and more successful outcomes within our state fiscal year. I mentioned that I went to the E3 program back in September.
Beth, we lost your sound. Can you, Elizabeth, can you see? Can you check and see perhaps did
Come back. Hear me now? Am I there? Can you hear me? Gary, what do I do? I know, but I can't figure out what to do. Can you help me?
Beth, Elizabeth, you're back.
I'm back. Okay. See, I didn't do anything other than
Well, there's so much volume on the internet these days. I think this is happening to many people. So go right ahead. Keep going.
Where did you lose me?
You were, I think, just wrapping up on the slide that's on the screen, talking about the participants that were selected.
Okay.
So I think the next slide is probably where we are.
All right, no problem. Okay, so what I was.
We're losing you again a little bit, Elizabeth.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, advance to the next slide. Okay. So of those 231 participants that participated, the intention was that those individuals would get special job development, placement, and follow-up.
Hey, Beth, you're really faint. Is there any way that you can get closer to your mic, or do you have a headset you could use?
I don't have a headset in here, but I could probably try to find one. I would have to go to another office to get one.
Okay, well, now you're coming back in loud again. I'm not sure why it's cutting in and out like that.
Okay, all right. Our efforts, these are things we normally do, but we were just trying to be more intentional in our outreach to those individuals to try and ensure their participation in some of these activities and efforts that we were doing. First, EMS or employment marketing skills classes. As I mentioned, our office has 2 business relations reps, and part of their jobs is to look for job opportunities in the community, to look at those customer needs of our business associates and organizations and industries to develop jobs. But this other component of their job is to provide training and job development with the individual consumers. So they have a curriculum that has been designed for the whole state. It's consistent across the state of North Carolina for business relations reps to train our consumers that participate in vocational rehabilitation, to help them to get information, to practice locating employment. They complete job applications, practice interviewing skills, talk about personal appearance, and develop a resume and a plan for seeking employment. And so this was not a new task or a new activity, but it was just the effort of the BRRs and the vocational rehabilitation counselors and their technicians to try to improve the attendance and break down any barrier that would keep an individual from participating in that class. Also, an activity that we normally have done is what we call a job club, and this is an informal gathering. It's not a structured curriculum, but monthly we have opportunities for our participants to come into our offices and to work with a business relations rep who provides them with local current job leads, helping them if they need assistance in the application process. The participants are able to interact with each other if they say, well, I applied to a job there last week, or I used to work for them a couple years ago. This is some things you need to be aware of. It's kind of almost like a peer support, peer mentoring opportunity through those job clubs for the job seeker. Just knowing that there are others out there looking as well. Pitfalls, sometimes they can identify those amongst each other, have those real life conversations. And so that is something that our BRRs, I'll call it, ramped up, and our counselors and our technicians ramped up the calling people in advance, reminding them, arranging transportation, just really concerted effort to get them to attend those job clubs to see if there'd be some positives that roll out from that. And then thirdly, we did an application day. And this was an event. This was it was a one-time event. We will replicate it, but this event was something that we borrowed from one of our sister offices in the Eastern region, from our regional employment specialists who had developed this concept of an application day, of doing a very targeted job search for specific consumers en masse, to help them to have more resumes or applications out there and hopefully have more success. So the application day, the counselors selected individuals within their 2020 group. They offered them a specialized invitation by letter and by phone saying, you've been selected to participate in this activity. The BRRs then, based on the very specific individuals that were coming on that day, identified job openings that were current, that were available, that were based on their job choice from their individual plan for employment. And that day, we were all hands on deck, whether it was a tech or an office assistant, me, the manager, the counselors, the BRRs, and we brought them into the office and gave them a little pep talk, gave them a little kind of overview, make sure that the voicemail message on their cell phones or their primary phone was updated. They had an email address that they could correspond if it was an online application, just encouraging them how to, those little quick tip kind of things. And then we divided them out and everybody went to separate rooms and we filled out specific job applications for them on that day. So it was kind of a nice targeted job approach. And in that, we had 40 individuals out of the 200 or whatever that were invited to come to that targeted application day. Only about 33 of them attended. You have a little fallout on that. During that time, 66 applications were submitted. Of those 66, 9 got interviews for some of the jobs they applied for, and 5 got hired. So there's a breakdown from how many you invite to how many attend, all the way down to who gets the jobs. But we saw that success with an application day. Our BRRs in their regular employment marketing skills classes, there were 79 participants who were on the 2020 lists and that came to either job clubs or the EMS, and they saw an increase in participation in those activities. Terry, if you'd advance the slide again, please. And so these were kind of our numbers. And of course, there's kind of some asterisks beside them, but our numbers, again, we started in October. We went through March, 6 months. The placements from October through March, of the 231 participants, we had 50 of those individuals who the counselors reported were placed on jobs. Some of my counselors, when I asked them for feedback, they only counted individuals who had attended application day. So this number might be slightly higher, but it'll be around that 50 mark. And then our successful closures from October through March, we had 34 individuals that were on the 2020 list that did become successful closures during that time. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, as I'm sure it's affected your efforts and energies across the nation, those closures some of our closures have been disrupted. So we might have had some more in March and then again in April, but they were either laid off, some of them may be called back, some of their businesses have shuttered due to our stay-at-home orders by our governor, different things like that. So we're not saying that 34 was the absolute number. It's just the ones that we know that we have closed, and we hope that maybe we'll see some more success from that. But that we'll have to kind of carry that. We obviously didn't expect a global pandemic when we started this initiative back in October. Terry, if you'll go to that next slide for me, please. What I said about feedback. In our 4 counties, we have 10 VR counselors, as I mentioned, or we have 10 caseloads. So what I did was I asked for the caseload teams to kind of answer some questions for me. Part of that was the participants in the classes and application day and the placements and closures. But I also asked them for some feedback as to, did they feel like this initiative had impact on the way they did business? And of those 10 caseload teams, the responses were, as you see, 5 said yes, they felt it definitely had an impact on what they were doing. 4 said no, they didn't really think that it caused them to do anything different than what they typically do. And 1 kind of rode the fence a little bit and said, well, I'm not quite sure. Yes, I see the benefits of it. I'm not sure if it changed a lot. But then when I asked them the question of, do you see benefit of continuing this type of initiative and focused, targeted approach to continue, 9 of them overwhelmingly said yes. I think that it's worthwhile, that it would benefit. And one of our caseload team said they didn't see that it would benefit us if we continue the process. I was talking a little earlier to Terry and some of the others, and I said, this is not empirical data. This was not scientific. There's no test study or, control group. This is just feedback that we got for our numbers and for the feelings of the VR counselors who participated in that. But so we do plan to continue this. And so, Terry, if you could give me that last slide. We work on a state fiscal year that goes from July 1 to June 30th. So part of the thinking and the timing of the 2020 and 2020 initiative was, even though we were starting already a quarter into our state fiscal year and the tracking of our statistics, that October gave us a start off point where if we did this intensive initiative for 6 months, if individuals were placed by March the 31st, and we were able to provide the follow along for them, the hope was that by the end of our fiscal year, June 30th, they would have a marked difference in our success of our closures. So it's not that during this last quarter we stopped placement, but those placements that come out from April, May, and June, of course, they're going to benefit us for closures come the next state fiscal year. So April 1st, we would have hoped to launch the second initiative of this, but due to COVID-19, our stay-at-home orders, all of our staff are teleworking. We do it on a rotating basis because our offices are still open for services, but we just have social distancing and fewer people within the office location itself. So I had kind of hoped to start that April 1st, but that didn't quite happen. So we will launch something similar. Some of the counselors suggested that we work with smaller groups. They even thought that even focusing on 20 with regular contact on a weekly and monthly basis was maybe still a little bit much, given they still have to do applications and develop plans and organize and facilitate services beyond job development and placement. And so we are looking at reducing our numbers a little bit for that continual rollover of cases. So it won't be just 10 people for a whole year, and it wasn't 20 for a whole year. But so we do look at perhaps maybe modifying that a little bit. We live and learn. Our business relations reps, the great team members that they are, they haven't stopped. They are doing EMS classes and job clubs by telephone and online through they don't use Zoom, but they other online platforms. So they have figured out a way to continue to provide services to those individuals who have telephone and video access. And so they're continuing those types of things. We have scheduled an application day for September. The organization and stuff is being put into place so that we could have a kind of a fall initiative for individuals in placement and things like that after the summer months are over. And my counselors, they're a great group of people, and they're always trying to figure out new ways in which they can engage our consumers and keep them participating and being active. And I do hope that this initiative has encouraged them to reach out more, to keep that person engaged as a consumer of vocational rehabilitation and keeping them involved in that job search. So, I'll call it in a nutshell, that is what the vision of intentional job development for the 2020 and 2020 program was all about. And it did come about because of some of the guidance and things that we received through this E3 initiative and project, and we are grateful that we had the opportunity to participate in it. So if you have any questions for me or want to know how we kind of manage this, please feel free to have your questions in the question and answer box. And I think that the other Beth
That's right.
is going to facilitate that in asking me the questions that you all have put out there.
Great. Take it away, other Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Gertner. I work at SBRI and help out sometimes on these webinars for E3. And other Beth, thank you so much for your presentation. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the middle. I know those can be kind of stressful.
That's all right.
So our first question comes from Kim, and she says that she loves the poster and was wondering if there's any way that we can get a copy of it.
Well, if you get the PowerPoint, it is on there. It's a graphic. I don't know if it's a JPEG or what, but yes. I mean, there's no copyright on it. I will give a shout out to our WorkSource East program down in Goldsboro, North Carolina, which is a learning program, a community rehab program that provides training to our consumers. One of them is a print shop, and they designed and printed the posters for us. So a shout out to them. they're not for sale. We don't have a marketplace or anything like that. But yes, if someone can snip it or save it from the PowerPoint, or I guess there's some way that we can share it, I'm glad for people to use something if that'll help motivate and encourage them.
Wonderful. And just so everyone knows, the slides will be available with the archived webinar. Earlier, it was posted in the chat on the side, the link to the archived webinar, which will be up in a few days, and we'll post the link again. All right, next question comes from Lynn. Are these employee relations reps paid VR employees?
Yes, they are. There are business relations reps in each office, VR office across the state of North Carolina. They are guided and directed through what we call a regional employment specialist. And so they are VR staff. They are responsible for business engagement, but also consumer education and placement services.
All right. Okay, next question. Is there an electronic version of the EMS book? If so, where can it be located?
That I would have to find out from either one of my business relations reps or from our regional education specialist. They have workbooks, and they have a curriculum they go through. It's through the state of North Carolina. So I don't know if there's an electronic format or not, but we can always find out and see what resources are available.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we'll follow up with that one. Okay. This question's from Jeff. What techniques have shown useful for the counselors or job development staff when developing jobs with employers for consumers? Are there any incentives that are utilized or provided to employers?
Okay. I guess I was hearing to the incentives for the employers, or were there incentives for the consumers?
It looks like incentives for the employers.
Okay. Well, our business relations reps, our counselors, anyone who's going out and doing job development. And I will tell you that the state of North Carolina does do the dual customer approach, even though, and I pointed out that, Ashley Cross was just kind of questioning, why don't we include the VR counselor in that triangle of cooperation, and how do we help them? But our employers are always given opportunities for things like targeted work opportunities, tax credits. There aren't any additional, there aren't any real other things. It depends. We do offer things like internship. We offer on-the-job training. So there are other means in which there are some assistance that we can provide to employers when they hire an individual with disability in the state of North Carolina. But the work opportunities tax credit would be the first incentive that we would say, other than just getting a great employee. And that's what we promote, that these individuals are capable individuals, and we're not just randomly applying for a job with them. We know, because based on their skills and their aptitudes, their interests, their past work experience, they can be successful in the jobs that we guide them to.
Great. And then just another quick question from Jeff. He's wondering what is a BRR? I believe that was on one of your last couple of slides.
The business relations representative is what the BRR stands for. And so they are the individual that is our go-to person in the unit to assist in that business engagement or the consumer education for employment marketing skills.
And another question here, also from Jeff, wondering if the feedback was from counselors or consumers.
The feedback was from counselors. It was from, and not only counselors, but also their technicians, the business relations reps, evaluators. They have caseload teams, and so the feedback was per team.
All right. During your application day, do you have employers present or just help your consumers do applications online, or I would assume if there's paper ones?
This particular application day that we did was just with consumers. However, there have been different variations of application days that our offices in the East have done throughout the last, I'll say, year, and some have been very targeted for employers. I'll give an example. In Wilmington, North Carolina, the school system, which is one of the county's largest employers in that area, had some issues with job retention, finding good employees. And so they did an application day that was targeted for jobs within the, I think it's called the New Hanover school system. Don't quote me on the name of the school district, but so they did, it was employer specific. And so there have been, when a new manufacturing or business or something has come in, there have been some that have been targeted with the employers present to actually conduct interviews on application day. Our particular one was just a concentrated effort on applications to a variety of jobs.
Okay. And we actually had somebody else who just asked in general for more information about the application event. So is there anything else about that event you want to share while you have a captive audience here?
Sure. The prior question was about, did we get consumer feedback? And I, in my kind of gathering of information, did not reach out to specific consumers, but some of the caseload teams in their responses back to me indicated that, I had asked the question, how did you feel your consumers responded? And a lot of the verbal feedback from our consumers, particularly about employment or the application day, but also about some employment marketing skills class and job clubs, is they felt, I'll call it, and because this is some of the words that they use, they were special. It was an invitation. It was exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
They felt like someone was giving them that extra edge up. And so
Yeah.
it have a positive effect on those consumers to say that the information that they were receiving was specifically for them. And they didn't feel like they were just one among the many because they got an invitation.
Wonderful. Yeah, sometimes just that personalized touch kind of can make all the difference. Just to touch back on an earlier question, there had been somebody who was wondering about the EMS toolkit. We have some other North Carolina staff on the webinar today, so thanks for joining us. And they have plugged those links into the chat. So if you want to take a look at them, you can go over into the chat and see those. And we will make sure to post them with the archive as well. All right, let's see. Next question here. Can you explain the job club and how successful it is to consumers? Is it easy to set up?
I mean, I'm speaking obviously for the business relations reps who do that. But yes, job clubs, it's about, they try to do them on a regular time. I don't, like the fourth Wednesday of every month. So it's consistent to a consumer who, if they unfortunately are still looking for a job month after month, they know that fourth Wednesday of the month, they can come to the VR office and the job club will happen that day and they can get some new job leads and talk to people. So setting it up is a matter of communicating with the VR counselors and the caseload teams to say, where and when it's going to happen. In some of our offices, we have one county that the office is actually in a county administration office, and therefore they have to reserve the conference room in order to have a group setting. And so sometimes that's dependent. If there happens to be an election or a primary that day, they get kicked out. If there's a different county activity that's being taken place, they get precedence. So the communication with consumers by letter or by phone to tell them if there's a change of date, of course, but also just to encourage them and invite them to come in. Of course, the business relations rep have to do their homework. They have to then, make sure that they're up to date on their job lists of, who's hiring, be knowledgeable about those jobs that are out there. So yes, the business relations reps and even the counselors have put in homework in advance to be prepared to share that information with our consumers. And then again, when those individuals come in, they can get that direct assistance with the application or sending a resume, or even perhaps saying, hey, do you need me to practice an interview with you before you get out? That sort of thing. Again, the component of the job club is the peer support that is involved in that, and just their ability to share with one another. Because even if the business relations rep or the counselor could have been prepared, for that meeting, they say, hey, by the way, I filled out an application at so-and-so, and because they hear somebody else that has that desire to work in that type of a position or a field. And so they get to share things. And again, as I mentioned, just knowing that there's other people out there having some of the same struggles that you're having in your job search, I think that peer support helps them.
Yeah, definitely. Next question comes from Sarah. And she asks, can you talk about how your team determined job-ready clients? Apart from the EMS class, what did you use to determine if someone was job-ready or not?
A very general term, because of course it's an individual plan for employment for a reason. It's all individualized, but we consider an individual job ready when the primary services of their plan that include either physical, mental restoration, or training have been completed. So if they came to us because they had a need for specialized equipment through assistive technology or a vehicle modification, or they were going to go through a training course, whether it be phlebotomy or a 4-year university or something like that, if they haven't completed those services yet, then they're typically not job ready. We do some preemptive job development before some of those services complete. If the majority of it is completed, they may still have some follow-up, or they may, of course, like with training, we know the training is going to end in the next month or 2 months. And so we start those kind of processes. But the job-ready consumers generally have completed other components of their plan and are actively looking for jobs and ready to take a job today. If the job is opening and the application is there, they can go to it.
Okay. And Lynn asks, can you explain more on the EMS? Is this taught by the BRRs?
Because it's just the way it's always been done. That's their job. I mean, the business relations rep, they're knowledgeable about what the employers want. They have met with the employers in our area, and they know what type of positions are available within a particular business or industry. And so they're teaching those skills that they know the employers want. Mm-hmm. And so that's a caveat for it, because our counselors and our technicians are doing the applications and doing assessments and developing plans and facilitating and coordinating services and different things. The business relations reps takes that responsibility and that activity, and it's just an opportunity as a team for them to provide that particular service. Now, our community rehabilitation programs also provide that service to our consumers who are participating in either work adjustment training or work adjustment job coaching or supported employment. We can do it, they can do it. So we do have other partners beyond just the BRR who does provide employment marketing skills to our consumers. So it is a component of a BRR's job, but it is also something that, everyone is involved in aspects of, and including our vendored services for community rehabilitation.
All right. And Beth, you are off the hook for the next one. This is one I can answer. Donna's asking if there will be any certificate made available to verify participation in the webinar. So just so everybody knows, you will receive an email tomorrow about a follow-up eval, and you'll have a link to the archive and things like that. And then it will also discuss CRC credits. And the CRC credit, that can serve as your verification of participation. So whether or not you need that CRC credit, there's also a verification of participation in that, wrapped up in that as well. All right, the next question comes from Marty. I think you pretty much answered this one already, Beth, but just I'll throw it at you just to make sure. They're asking if you involve local employers in application day, and it sounds like the one that you were specifically talking about, it was more focused on the consumers, but in the past there have been application days where employers were involved. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Again, if there's an employer who has specific job needs, maybe they've opened up and expanded, maybe they're new to our area, maybe they're just having a difficulty in their recruitment, and our business relations rep have engaged with them and seen that need, they can have an application day specifically for that. A component of Job Club is that on occasion, not every month, but on occasion, employers do come into our job clubs to talk about the types of jobs that they have, or to focus on, I'll call it an attribute that they would like to see in a potential applicant, so that the consumers can actually see or hear from an employer who's doing the hiring to say, this is what we look for, and you can apply that to our vacant jobs or to any others that you're applying to.
And while we're on the topic of application days, we also have a question about any best practices or best approaches for conducting application day. Were there any tips or tricks you wanted to share that you haven't mentioned already?
I'm going to say that I really, other than encouragement and cheerleading, my BRRs and our regional education specialists, our regional employment specialists, they did all the work. And so it took a village. It took the regional employment specialists helping and directing our local BRRs for reaching out to employers and gathering information, our VR counselors and technicians to reach out to the consumers to make sure their transportation was arranged, to make sure that part of kind of harking back to the job ready question, making sure that they had appropriate interview attire, that different types of things. So it was a team approach. So no one could probably pull off a successful application day without a team approach to it. It's not a one-man show. It takes everyone to participate and do their part so it can be successful.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Katrina asking if there's a plan to do this nationwide for VRC to start job clubs / job development. And as far as I know, most job clubs are regional, and that actually seems to work a little bit better. Has that been your experience with job clubs as well, Beth?
Again, I think it depends on, yes, having employers involved and knowing the jobs that are out there. Our issue, obviously, with, there are so many employers out there, you can't have them all. And so you kind of have to rotate it. Also just the timing of it, job clubs, employment marketing skills class are day-long sessions. They come in for a few hours in the morning. We let them break for lunch. They come back in the afternoon. They come back a second day if there's other components that weren't covered. Job club is like an hour to 2 hours. And so it's a much quicker type of a thing. Businesses, they can't always, be there to do that. So the job club part of it is, it's nice to have that participation of local employers and organizations. We, that also includes our partnership with our, what we call NC Works, which is a component of the Department of Commerce, our cooperation with them. I know that we've looked at having them come in and help participate with us because, what everybody would call the employment office, they linked up with the employment security, job link center, that sort of thing. So there is some partnership that goes along with that beyond even employers to other community groups. And so it's one of those things that's an interesting component of it, but that's probably the more difficult to organize and arrange.
And Susan asks if you incorporate application day with job fairs and career centers in the area.
We have not, but again, that was something that was new to us. We do have job fairs. We do have career days that we participate in some of the local community colleges, Job Link, community ones, some community partners that do. So if we knew that there was one coming up, we would definitely encourage and advertise for it at our job club, saying, hey, there's a job fair that's going to happen at the community college next Tuesday. You need to have resumes printed here. Here we'll help you print them. Here's what you're going to do. We help prepare individuals for job fairs, but we haven't put them in direct connection with participation as of yet, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a great idea. All right, we have a couple questions here just asking a little bit more about the 2020 initiative, just generally if you have more information on the design of it and just determining people's fit for the 2020 group.
Well, again, I left that up to the individual caseload teams to identify the individuals. And, as time went by, a counselor would come in and talk to me and say, I'm going to take these people off the list and put these people on, maybe because they weren't as engaged or responsive. Obviously, things happen too. Someone has a recurrence of a situation based on their disability or not, that they're not as able to engage in their plan for employment as much as they might have in the past. And so, the design of the 2020 list was 20 individuals that you're going to try to get placed in employment to get 20 outcomes. So it's a rolling list. It can be people can come on and come off and flow, so that the intent was over that 6-month period you'd be continuing working with 20 individuals, whether someone else had gotten placed and successful closure, or if you brought somebody new on. So just continuing to reevaluate each month who is on your targeted approach. Again, we're going to try and scale back ours. So it might be a 10 or 15 person list rather than a 20 person list.
Mm-hmm.
Just make it a little bit more manageable, but still it's a concept of flow of some will come on, some will go off, and they will get replaced. And I mean, that's the nature of VR. You constantly, your caseloads are living and moving. So our
yeah.
That's the same.
Right. The next question comes from Elston. Before the consumers are referred to any employers, do they go through any VR work training center to acquire some job readiness skills?
No, not always. I mean, it depends upon the individual. I mentioned about the print shop at our WorkSource East down in Goldsboro, and that is they do job specifics. Like there's the print shop, there's food service, there's maintenance, there's personal care attendant, dog grooming, horticulture, bricklaying. There's an array, auto service. There's an array of things that they do. And so, yes, some of our consumers might have participated in that. They may have participated in a community college program that might have been a certificate program like phlebotomy or construction or something like that. But no, not all of our consumers get skills training because, of course, a lot of these individuals are people who may have acquired their disability, so they already had job skills. They may be individuals that participate in a work adjustment training at one of our local facilities where they just are doing adjustment to work, getting to work on time, practicing that interaction with supervisors and coworkers. That's short term, only a few months, about 3 months is our limit for our in-house work adjustment at this time. We're they might participate in some of those programs to become job ready, but not all of ours do, because some have those skills that they come to us with.
Okay. And we actually have a comment from Edith. She chimed in to say that she worked as a BRR in Greensboro and High Point for 4 years. And with job clubs, they had it once a week with a regular format at each location. So thanks, Edith, for chiming in.
We do it monthly because we have multiple locations. And so, you know, we have 2 BRRs, but they have to go to different places. So they end up doing 3 to 4 job clubs a month anyway. And then they also each do several employment marketing skills classes if they go into the school to do it, or if they have it in the office. So our BRRs are doing it more often than once a month, but they're just doing it in different locations.
Yeah, and I would assume that frequency would vary a lot depending on your location and staffing and things like that. Paul asked what your placement goals are for the year.
I can pull that up very quickly. I want to say 176 is our goal. That's close. That's successful outcomes. That's not necessarily placements. We don't have a placement goal for people who get jobs. We have a successful outcome goal. Our unit's successful is 187 is our annual goal for our unit for successful outcomes.
Thanks for looking that up. Maria chimed in. She says, in California, we have community rehabilitation programs, CRPs, who assist us in helping our consumers get jobs. We also have business specialists, which are similar to the BRRs in North Carolina. I'm not sure if this is the case in Minnesota, but if so, how does your staff determine which consumers are referred to the CRPs and which consumers are referred to the BRR for employment assistance?
In North Carolina or in Rocky Mount, those are not mutually exclusive. We do have community rehabilitation programs, again, for an in-house work adjustment program currently for what we call community-based work adjustment training, which is a service that's in development, job coaching, and then what we call supported employment job coaching. And so that's based on the individual's needs. You know, do they have they not worked in a while? Do they have a work history at all? What skills do they need? What are they bringing to the table to become job ready? Or with the level of their disability, are they going to struggle in that interaction of the job development, in approaching employers, in completing the application process, going through the interview? Depending on where they fall, if they need that extra assistance or they need that training beforehand, that's when we refer out to a CRP. The individuals that we work with who perhaps have the intellectual or academic skills that they've already demonstrated, but just need assistance in job development, identifying what jobs are out there. Beyond, you know, that you may have seen like the pictures of the iceberg of the jobs that are out there and available, right? And like if you're looking at what we call the newspaper classifieds or now the online, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And the business relations reps have gone down below the surface and they found those jobs that are out there that aren't always advertised and things. So our business relations reps can help those individuals who don't need that intensive service of supported employment or the training and structure of a work adjustment training program to assist them in that process. So if you go through employment, work adjustment training, have a job coach, you can still work with our business relations rep. but you can work with our business relations rep and not need the services that are justified and provided by a community rehabilitation that's put on your employment.
Thanks. So we have another question about job clubs. The question is from Kim, and she's wondering, how do you handle confidentiality in job clubs?
Well, the counselors, when they talk to their consumers, or a business relations rep who invites an individual to participate in a job club, they notify the individuals of the fact that this is a job club, that there are multiple individuals going to participate. So they're aware that individuals are going to, they're not going to be, it's not a one-on-one. They're going to be in a group setting. Now, our business relations reps never discuss an individual's specific disability or their specific impediment to employment in that group setting. If there's something that needs to be specifically addressed, then they would hold that off until a break, or until, like, they would ask that individual, hey, Beth, can you meet with me in my office? I want to talk to you a little bit more. They would never discuss the specific disability related information in that group setting.
Okay. And we have a very topical question for you next. How do you think COVID-19 will impact your job development and placement strategies?
Well, obviously it's already having an impact. I think we've identified probably close to a dozen consumers who had been placed in jobs who their job was either shut down due to our stay-at-home orders by our governor, or they were laid off with the intent of, yeah, when we reopen, we'll call you back, kind of a thing. We know that it's had significant impact already, but there are jobs out there. Through this, I can't tell you the number of job leads that my business relations reps and my counselors and my other staff say, hey, Zaxby's is hiring someone, to for their drive-through, or this company is hiring individuals, like Big Lots or Walmart, they're hiring people for stocking, or the grocery store, they need someone to be what they call them here QAs. They basically do the cleaning. They're basically janitorial staff, because they've ramped up their sanitization practices so much.
Mm-hmm.
And there are jobs, there are people still hiring. So our staff are trying to, I'll call it, optimize those opportunities and get into those avenues of employment for some of our individuals. I know our agency in general in the state of North Carolina, in general, we don't like to look at temporary employment or things that we know are very, very short-term employment opportunities to focus our energies. But they've said we can help with temporary employment now, knowing that someone might be getting a job through the COVID-19 situation, but that's going to, one, help put food on their table. It's going to give them good work experience so that they can apply that to more of their chosen goal, job goal, and career going forward. We've changed the way we do business in vocational rehabilitation. Talking about community rehabilitation programs, the state of North Carolina has opened up. We have what we call milestones that a lot of our CRPs get paid according to different goals and outcomes that are set. And there's like 5 outcomes. We usually only pay the job development once, but because of the COVID-19, our state leadership decided, no, we need to pay for second placements because they helped get this person a job. It's no fault of theirs, no fault of the consumers that the job was lost, but they got to look for another one. And so we're trying to figure out ways that we can be creative, open up some of our restrictions and our policies to help to get more placements through COVID-19. Definite impact, but I do see that we're also going to have a great need as the states open back up, as our employers are now allowed to reopen their doors yes, it'll change a little bit. Our lives are going to be changed forever due to COVID-19, I believe, masks and sanitization practices and things. But we're going to move on, and there's going to be a great deal of opportunity. And so, at least for me in Rocky Mount, I want my counselors, my techs, my BRRs, my evaluators, I want them to prepare our consumers for the opportunities that await them as the things open up from this pandemic.
Thanks. Yeah, I know a lot of us are going to be changing how we approach things in the future. So we have a couple of questions here about job clubs. So both Edith and Mary have questions about them. So both of them are wondering about the online job club and how it was set up and how that's been working. And then additionally, Edith's asking if you have any advice to share for starting one with DSB. And maybe if you could briefly inform those who maybe aren't from North Carolina about differences between general VR and DSB, just in case they have a combined in their state.
All right, yeah. In the state of North Carolina, vocational rehabilitation, I'll call it, our agency works with all arrays of disabilities. But we do have agencies such as the Division of Services for the Blind, the Division of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, that work specifically with individuals with those disability types. And part of the criteria is that when a VR counselor is working with an individual with a visual impairment, there's certain criteria that we look at. And it's not, again, they're not mutually exclusive, but the different services that are provided, DSB or DHH may take lead. And then we don't duplicate services, but we complement each other. And so that's just the difference between DSB. They obviously, in the Division of Services for the Blind, they have a population with very specific needs that would takes a lot of specialized training and understanding and access. And so that's why there's DSB and there's VR in state of North Carolina. But in the E3 project, we work together. And we work together in general, but through this E3 project, we've kind of been working alongside of each other. How do online job clubs work? I'm going to tell you that we haven't had our first one yet. So it's scheduled. It's scheduled in May. Both we have 3 scheduled that I'm aware of in the month of May for our offices. And those are going to be done through freeconferencecall.com. Our business relations reps are still going to gather the job leads. They will either email or send out job packets to any of the participants who I'll call it register. And when I say register, basically they're letting us know by phone call or email that they're going to participate. And so we'll send them the information. The plan is for them to join the call. They've been given instruction. You're talking about the confidentiality. For instance, like you look at the chat or the Q&A sections here on Zoom, we've told them not to put their full names. We've given them instruction to minimize the identifying information that would pop up on the screen. And again, as we mentioned, they know that it's not a one-on-one. There are going to be other individuals that are going to be in that virtual room with them. And so at that time, our business relations reps are planning to share the information, what they know about the employers, the jobs that are available, give opportunity for the participants to ask questions, to express issues or concerns that they have, provide their knowledge and foresight in the things that they're aware of pertaining to those jobs or other jobs that are out there. So it is something to be seen as to how it all comes together, but our business relations reps, they've done some trial runs through that freeconferencecall.com platform. And so they kind of tested it out. It just, because of, I mentioned the ruralness of our catchment area, some people, their bandwidth, the ability for them to get onto a Zoom, with a video type thing just doesn't work out for them. We attempted the Microsoft Teams platform, and some of that wasn't working so well. So that's why they opted for the free telephone or freeconferencecall.com platform. So we'll see how that's going to go. The employment marketing skills classes, that was more of a statewide initiative. So I think that's available across our state, not just here in Rocky Mount. But our business relations reps are still getting referrals from our VR counselors, from the caseloads of who needs the service. The VRRs are reaching out, and it's broken down into, I think it's 5 or 6 modules. So, they're not sitting on the phone with them all day long. They're doing it in smaller increments, for caption of time and just attention and that sort of thing. And they're going over that information, but that's more of a one-on-one. That's not at this point, to my knowledge, it's not in a freeconferencecall.com platform. That's a one-on-one kind of platform to go over the materials, helping them understand, and they're scheduling that. I had some emails this morning about feedback from how that was going, and so far had several participants at least initiating sessions. I don't think anybody's gone through all 6 sessions yet, but they're making progress.
That's good. So actually this, I think, kind of circles back around to one of the earlier questions asking about like the goals for your unit for the year and things like that. I think people are maybe looking just for a little bit of frame of reference about the size of your unit and things like that. So one person asked, how many counselors do you have in your unit? And then also in terms of the successful outcomes, what would be a couple examples of successful outcomes?
Okay, well, we have 10 vocational rehabilitation counselors. We also have the independent living program in our catchment, which is actually a 7-county catchment. But for vocational rehabilitation, we have 10 counselors, we have 10 caseloads, and we do have support staff for those evaluators, business relations rep, technicians. And so I mentioned earlier we take, and I can probably reference it right here, our goals, which are our performance goals, 621 applications a year. Not saying we reach all these goals, I'm saying that the goals that were set for us. 121 applications, 381 case activations, which means that we determined eligibility and written a plan of services for those individuals. And then, as I mentioned, 187 successful outcomes. A successful outcome is when an individual has completed the services on their individual plan for employment. They've obtained employment, are independent if they have job coaching or something. So they've demonstrated independence on their job. And then we begin a 90-day count for RSA purposes, 90 days or beyond. So a successful closure is someone who's worked independently on their job with or without supports for 90 days or beyond before closure. I'll give them a little reference. I mentioned we had a slide that 34 2020 participants had been successfully closed out of VR services from October to March. Our unit successfully closed 52 individuals in that same time period, but only 34 of those were identified as people who were on the 2020 list. Mm-hmm. Other individuals are getting work. We haven't, it's not that we provide the 2020 focus and intentionality in exclusion of our other consumers that we continue to work with, and they still get jobs and they still participate in EMS and they still do things. It was just that we felt these individuals needed that extra intention, maybe because they had been looking for quite some time and had not had the success, or maybe we felt that they didn't have the same level of independent motivation. There's just individuals who are go-getters just by personality. Mm-hmm. Individuals who just need that extra, perhaps either hand-holding or sometimes a little bit of a shove. Hoping that this intentionality would meet those needs.
All right, I'm just keeping an eye on the time here, Beth, and I think I'm going to throw you one more question and then turn it over to Jen to give a little bit more info on the CRC for people and
Sounds good.
just that follow-up info. So if we did not get to your question today, I will be sending all of the questions that we didn't get to during the broadcast to the other Beth to respond to, and we will include those with the archived webinar. So I apologize if we didn't get to you. There were a lot of questions today, which is wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating and asking questions. There have been a lot of really great ones, so I appreciate people taking the time to drop those in the question and answer, and we will get to you. I'm sorry we ran out of time. So our last question we're going to get to today here is the EMS class and the job club the only job readiness training the consumer gets, or do they do job readiness training before and then participate in these additional services?
The EMS class, the employment marketing skills class, and the job club are the only direct, I'll call it, established activities that we do as vocational rehabilitation. As I mentioned, some of our participants do participate in our community rehabilitation program services, which may include work adjustment training, individualized job coaching, or supported employment job coaching, which gives them an added component of job readiness because of their interactions with job coaches or workplace supervisors at our work adjustment training programs. And so there is that, or as I mentioned, services that we may have provided with them, part of their individual plan for employment may have included a WorkSource East training curriculum. They may have participated in community college or some of our local programs. We have, it's OIC, it's an Opportunities Industrial Center. I think that's the title of it. We just call it OIC. And
so many acronyms.
and our job link, our career centers through the Department of Commerce, as I had mentioned, our partnership with them earlier. They may have programs and job readiness classes and things that our individuals participate in. So our assistance in job development isn't exclusive to you have to have participated in our EMS or our job club. If you're a VR consumer participant in our general VR program, then the BRR can still assist you in job development. Your counselor is still working with them in job development. And the job development is not exclusive to our BRRs. That we greatly appreciate all that they do, and they do a large component of it. Each individual who is employed by the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, it's part of our job to assist in job development and assistance in helping our consumers. So everyone is involved in prepping that consumer. In any of our interactions, our first directive is to move them in a direction of employment. And so, even if they're calling to check on the status of their prosthetic leg, we say, well, and what are you doing to get ready for work? Okay, it's been ordered. So what types of jobs have you seen out there? Are you thinking about the types of employers you're going to approach? We're weaving that into our communication with our consumers whenever we can.
Wonderful. So again, Beth, thanks for answering all the questions. I know I threw a lot at you there.
That's why I agreed to it.
And just a quick note before I throw it over to Jen, if anybody wanted to reach out to Beth, if they have a follow-up question they didn't get a chance to ask during the webinar, or if there's materials they're looking for that maybe we don't include in the archive, her email has been posted in the chat. And that's all I have. I'll toss it over to Jen now.
Great. I'm Jennifer, and I work at CRI along with FG and Terry, and I'm the person that helps with all those CRCs. So if you're in need of the CRC for today's webcast, the link I just added to the chat box contains steps to request the CRC, and you will also receive an email tomorrow with these instructions. Be sure to visit our website at www.projecte3.com to view our archived webcast and visit the news and best practices section. We now have a COVID-19 best practices page available for VR professionals. These best practices support you to continue serving people with disabilities while protecting yourself and them. We encourage you to check that out as well. That concludes this week's webcast. We will leave the site open for about 5 minutes or so folks can have some time to grab any resources in the chat box if they would like. And so thank you all for joining us today. Stay safe.